Hi, my name's Maddy. Welcome to 3x3x3. I'm going to explain kind of what you're in for in a little bit, but for today's class, all you'll need is a mat, water, a towel if you'd like to wipe off. We're going to be using one weight. If you don't have access to that, though, you can use cans or not use one at all. I'll give options for that. And then also have access to wall space. We're going to be doing some wall sits, so just anywhere you can lean up against. And again, if you don't have access to that, that's also totally fine. But I'm going to read our waiver so we can get started. So in order to make these classes as freely accessible to our participants, we will be using a verbal warning and assumption of risk at the beginning of the class. Participation in this online class is voluntary. Physical activity programs may result in injury, and by participating, you assume the risk of injury that may result from your participation. We strongly recommend that you participate from a space that is suitable for this activity. For example, make sure that you have moved nearby furniture and other potential hazards. If you're participating in a space or in a yoga class or class that involves lying on the ground, we recommend using a mat, or if you don't have one, a carpeted area. Participants are encouraged to stop if they experience pain or injury and should seek appropriate medical advice or care as needed. William & Mary Health and Wellness strongly recommends that each participant have an annual physical examination and follow the advice of your healthcare provider before participating. All right, so for today's class, 3x3x3 is essentially a full body workout. We have 3 big blocks of work. That's the first 3. And within each of those big blocks of work, we've got a minute of upper body, a minute of lower body, and then a minute of core. That's the second 3. And we repeat each of those 3 times. That's the third 3. And in between each of those big blocks of work, we're also going to be doing a minute of cardio. So pretty much you're going to get a little bit of everything in today's workout. We're going to be doing biceps, triceps, and shoulders for today. I know I've been doing a lot of chest and back, so that was my goal, and that's why we need those weights. But if you want to go ahead and start that Spotify playlist, which I'll put that one more time in the chat so you guys have got it, you can start that and then meet me at the end of your mat for our warm-up. All right, guys, so we're going to be doing something called the world's greatest stretch, which is basically what I've been doing since we began this quarantine. But essentially start with your feet a little bit wider than your hips, nice bend in the knees. And what we're going to start is by bending the knees and planting the hands on the ground. And we're going to walk them out, bracing that core into a nice long plank. All right, so from here, we're going to take one of our feet. It really doesn't matter which one. And we're going to bring it to the outside of our feet. And I'm going to turn towards you guys so y'all can see. I might have to bring that camera down a little bit, so I will do that in a second. From here, though, we're going to take the same arm as the foot that's forward, make a fist, and connect it directly above our elbow joint. From here, we're going to try to drop that elbow as close to the ground as possible, getting into sort of those hip flexor muscles, those groin muscles, for 8 reps. There's 4 different parts to this stretch, these stretches, so we're going to be doing each of them for 8 reps. I'm going to bring this camera down briefly so y'all can see. All right. So let's do 2 more of those reps. 2 and 1. From here, we're going to take the same hand that was connected to our elbow joint. We're going to thread the needle underneath the standing arm and then open up towards our knee that's forward, just like this, for 8 full reps. What we're doing here is opening up into our spine, opening into the lower back, the mid back, and also the neck as we follow our hand with our eyes, follow our gaze, and also getting a little bit deeper into those hamstring muscles as we hold this position. All right, guys, 2 more. And last one. And when we're done, we're going to take this hand that's in the air and use it to straddle that foot. And essentially, we're going to start, again, turning myself so you guys can see me, in this nice long lunge position, nice hip flexor stretch, nice flat back. And we're going to rock between this position and a nice long hamstring stretch. So letting that front knee bend and then straightening it and letting the toe pop up to come and feel a nice tug in the back of the leg for 8 reps. So the reason this is called world's greatest stretch is because it really does stretch most of our giant muscles in our body. So a lot of the big leg muscles, and I like to add a little bit to help us stretch through our arm muscles as well, get our upper body moving. All right, last one here. And we're going to come back into this nice long lunge. We're going to brace our core and bring our chest upwards, just like this. And again, I'm going to turn towards y'all so you can see me. We're going to connect our hands in front of us, still in that nice long lunge, into a prayer. And what we're going to do is pulse 1 inch up, 1 inch down. As we go down, we press our palms together and release as we come up. So 1 inch up, 1 inch down with that release. And as we press our palms together, we're getting our chest and our back involved, really squeezing through our lat muscles here, squeezing through the muscles underneath our armpits. Those are our big chest muscles. And also feeling that nice long stretch. Feeling a little bit of activation already in those quads. For 2. And last one. All right, we're gonna cartwheel those hands back down to the ground. Nice flat back once again. Bracing our core, we're gonna bring our forward leg to meet the back one. Back into that nice plank. We're gonna center ourselves, come into that nice plank once again. Brace that core, butt comes into the air as we walk our hands backwards, bracing that core still, and stand it on up. So that was one side. We're gonna do the same thing on the opposite side now. So again, set that stance. Brace that core, bring those hands down to the mat, and walk them out into that nice long plank, no mountains or valleys. We bring that other foot, so the foot we haven't worked quite yet, to the outside of our feet for a nice long lunge. Again, turning towards y'all. All right, we take the hand that's the same as the foot that's forward, make a fist connected above our elbow joint, dropping that elbow down to the ground, nice and light. As you guys can see, my elbow gets pretty much nowhere near the ground, and that's totally fine. We just want to be feeling a little bit more of a stretch through this inner thigh, through our quad, our back hip flexor, getting into these nice big leg muscles because we're really going to work them today. All right, last one here. And again, for this next one, we're going to thread the needle underneath that standing arm and open up to that knee, open that chest up towards that front knee, following our hand with our eyes so that we get a nice twist with that cervical or upper spine up into the neck. We're also working our shoulders, stretching them, getting them a little bit warm here. Really put a little pressure on them. We are going to be working them today. All right. Finish up those 8 reps for that last one. And we're going to take that hand that's in the air and use it to straddle those feet so that our hands are on opposite sides of our foot. From here, again, we're rocking between this nice long hip flexor stretch and then allowing that front leg to straighten and that toe to pop up so we feel a nice tug in that back leg. So some of our popular kind of stretches that we'll see at the beginning of class and also in our cool down, we're adding a little bit of movement to them for our warm up. Nice flat back if we can. If you want to turn on your camera to check out and make sure that you are doing that nice flat back, that's totally welcome. All right, guys, 2 more here, or whatever you're done with your 8 reps. All right, and when we're done, let's brace that core, and once again, bring that chest up toward a nice long standing lunge. 90-90 with those knees. And let's connect our hands in front of us. And again, push as we go down and release as we come up. So again, feeling that quad muscle already beginning to engage. And if we only want to go down truly an inch, that is totally fine. If we want to get a little deeper into those legs, that's also fine. Let's really focus on that upper body. For 2 and 1. Let's go ahead, cartwheel those hands back to straddle that foot. And when you're ready, come back into that nice high plank, bracing that core, and then walk those hands back into the feet and stand it on up. Awesome job, guys. That was our warm up. So go ahead, grab water. Let me grab my water from right here. And I'm basically going to explain what our first circuit is going to look like. Again, a minute of upper body, a minute of lower body, and then a minute of core. Alrighty? So, hold on one sec. So, hopefully you guys got your weights handy, but if not, that's also fine. We're going to be beginning with a crossbody bicep curl. So essentially, your normal bicep curl is where your bicep and your elbow pretty much stays facing backwards like this. And we bring our weight up to our shoulder joint. Instead, we're actually going to bring it pretty much to that opposite shoulder joint so that it crosses over our body. Just working a little bit different head of the bicep, a little bit different aspect of the bicep than we did last week. What we're going to be doing is a minute on one hand, a minute on the other, and then 30-30 for that last minute. Then for our lower body, you're gonna meet me on the mat, laying on our stomach. All right, and what we're gonna do is you can have your hands out in front, by your sides, out in T, it really doesn't matter. But we're gonna lift those knees up off the mat, and then curl your hamstrings towards you, squeeze into those hamstrings, squeeze into those glutes. You can point your feet or flex them, whichever is more comfortable, and then releasing. And what you can do is you can tap down to the ground to release, or keep them up and lifted for the entire duration of the move. And then for our core, we're gonna flip over onto our backs and kind of come into a modified boat pose. So if we're in boat pose here, we're gonna have our hands on the mat, our fingertips face our heels, and we're going to make rainbow motions with our feet. So using our core to drive this motion just like this. And there are some other options that I will give as we get more into the moves. But let me also pull up my timer. All right, guys, so a minute beginning with our weights, with our crossbody bicep curls. Alrighty, guys, so let's begin with that minute in 3, 2, 1. So again, it really doesn't matter which side we are on, but we're staying with this one for the entire minute. So that's where we want to be. And if we don't have access to weights, we don't have access to cans, that's totally fine. We can also grab a book. We can grab any really real thing that has a little bit of heft to it. Or if we want to, we also don't have to use those weights. We really can just focus on the contraction of that bicep, so this upper portion of the inner arm, as we pull up and down. You won't feel quite as much engagement from that exercise. However, I still think it's important to, really practice the contraction of those muscles. So that is also something that's very, very valuable. And obviously, we're working with what we've got during coronavirus. So totally, totally fine. And also if you have actual weights, this is a great time to use them. Again, 5s, 8s, maybe 3s, anything that you feel like is helpful. 2, 1, awesome, finish that up. Meet me on your mat, face down. Again, those hands can be pretty much anywhere you'd like them to be. So I'm gonna have my hands out in front of me, I believe. Yeah, so I'm gonna lift my knees up and squeeze them inwards. So we don't want our legs to be quite parallel as they're backwards. I want you to have a little bit of a V shape to them. So almost point your toes towards the corner of your mat, all right? And all we're doing is squeezing our glutes, squeezing those hamstrings. And if you can, keeping those knees lifted up off the ground. So kind of bracing through those quads a little bit as well to keep them up. But if we don't want to do that, we can also tap and then lift, tap, and then lift to give yourself a little bit of a break in between. But we are halfway through, you guys. And again, really important with this move, you won't see me demonstrating it too much just because I want to make sure you guys can hear me, but make sure you have a nice neutral neck. So maybe looking about 6 inches in front of you rather than looking to the side like me. But hopefully you're feeling a little bit of tension in those hamstrings, the back of the legs. Last one there. And let's flip over into that modified boat pose with our hands on the ground. And all we're doing is with our heels, tracing a nice big rainbow. So this move is meant to work our lower abdominal muscles, but also is really just meant to get kind of our stabilizer muscles, our obliques, our whole core nice and warm. I often like to use our first sort of set, obviously as a part of our class, but also as an extension of our warm-up. And today is definitely one of those days that I decided to do that with this core move. We're really feeling each and every single one of those muscles working, being tugged on a little bit by those legs moving around. If we want a little extra, what we can try is keeping those hands up. It's just gonna be quite a bit more difficult to stay nice and steady. But I really want you guys to be focusing on using the core to drive the legs. And that's also something, if we just want to try for a couple reps, that's totally fine. Then we come back down into this modified position, maybe bending a little lower into those hands. Last one there. All right, guys, take a little breather and stand it on up. Now, what we're going to do is hopefully remember which side you have already worked. Make sure you use that same weight. We're going to switch to the other side for the rest of these crossbody bicep curls. So set the stance. which I don't think I talked too much about last time, but make sure we got a nice micro bend in the knees. So that means that our knees are not completely locked out like this. We want a little bit of a bend in them so that blood flow is still able to flow through. They're a little bit wider than our hips, just making sure we've got a nice firm foundation on the ground. Really important too, let's make sure that elbow stays nice and tucked into our body, right? We don't want to see your elbow way over here because that's going to get a little bit more into the shoulder. We want to really build the tension in our bicep. Something we always also work on as we're standing up is that rather than having our butt back kind of like this, I want you to practice tucking your pelvis underneath and feeling that little bit of engagement in that core. All right, that's really going to help us protect that lower body, or that lower back, excuse me, which is something we always want to be focusing on when we're standing, moving around on our back, anything like that. So for 3, 2, 1, awesome. All right, guys, let's lay it back down. And maybe this time you want to try taking it up or taking it down. So maybe we keep those knees up off the ground for the whole time. Maybe we tap them in between. Maybe we do one without tapping, then one with tapping. Lots and lots of ways you can modify this move to make it work for you guys. But really important is let's squeeze at the top. We won't even hold it for 3 seconds to really challenge ourselves. That's a great option. But we're squeezing, squeezing, squeezing as much as possible. Again, those toes sort of point towards the outer portions of our mat rather than straight back behind us. And again, those hands can be out anywhere that you feel is comfortable. If you want to put them down by your sides. But we're feeling this in those glutes, feeling it in those hamstrings. This is one of those moves that is hurting quite a bit, and you wouldn't really think that it would. I'm looking at my mom because she told me that's not going to be a hard move, but I'm feeling it. And hopefully you guys are too. All right, let's flip it over onto our backs. All right, so once again, placing those hands on the mat and tracing a nice big rainbow. Really something that you can also do to kind of take it up a bit is make that rainbow a little bit bigger. Maybe make it taller, maybe make it wider. Lots of ways that you can focus on channeling it into those abs. We can also make it a little bit smaller, wider, but a little bit shorter. Or take out the bend in those legs. If we make those legs work a little bit harder, you guys can, I'm sure, hear it in my voice. Lots of options. We can also bend into those elbows a little bit more. That'll really make it make your upper abdominal muscles work a little bit harder as well. Really important though too, let's try not to round through our shoulders. We want to make sure our chest is pressed upwards. And again, feeling a nice warmth spreading through that core as it warms up. Breathing through this, guys. For 3, 2, 1. Awesome. All right, grab water if you need it. We are on our last round, so I want you to think, how can you challenge yourself? I'm going to ask you on every single third round that we have, we've got 3 of them, to do something that's going to challenge you on every single move, whether that's really focusing on the muscle you're working, more reps, anything like that. But crossbody curl, start on one side, and we will go to the other side. So for me, I'm really going to focus on that bicep contraction. So again, that's this muscle right here on the way up and also on the way down. When we hit 30 seconds, guys, we're going to switch hands. So that's how we're going to make sure we're nice and even on this side. So you're not going to be working this quite as hard, right? We have plenty of time to really challenge ourselves, especially on either side. Feeling a little bit more to the outside of that bicep rather than straight in the center of it, the belly of the bicep. I'm feeling it a little bit differently with these crossbody curls. Sorry, switch. I did it, but didn't tell you guys to, so switch if you haven't already. Feeling that contraction, that nice micro bend. Maybe tucking that pelvis underneath as you've let it creep out a little bit. Bracing that core for 5 more seconds. 2, 1, and down. Awesome. All right, guys. Let's find our way to our stomach. Great way to challenge yourself is to try to keep those knees up for as long as possible. So squeezing as hard as you can at the top. Squeezing through the meat of those glutes, the top of those glutes, and also the hamstrings, which are this muscle right here, the back of your thigh. Really, really big muscles, super important for a lot of different things. So we want to make sure that we give them enough attention, basically. All right, guys, halfway done. We're almost there. So let's really think about how you're going to challenge yourself. Woo. Feeling a little bit of heat in my glutes and in my hamstrings, so that is awesome. I want you to brace that core here as well. Still protecting that lower back even though we're on our stomach. Use that core to provide stability to this move. 2, 1. Amazing, guys. Whew, those hamstrings, ouch. Let's flip it on over. For our last time through this, again, I've given you tons of options. So maybe this is a round that you really just experiment with all of those options, see which one you like best, see which one you can really feel the most shake in those abdominal muscles, most difficulty talking, as I'm sure you guys will hear me. Hard to do it's hard to talk when you're doing all this, especially really working those abdominal muscles. So just challenge yourselves, whatever that means for you today. Whew. If you need a little break, you can shake out those wrists. We can also be on gorilla fist if you have wrist problems. That's perfectly fine. Again, straight legs is a perfect option for this. Or not necessarily straight, but somewhere between this really 90-degree angle and perfectly straight. 2, 1. Finish out that rep, guys. Amazing job. All right, we have got our 1 minute of cardio, and for this one, we're going to be doing some crossbody jacks. So we're going to be doing jacking with crossing our arms in front of us like this, just like that. We can also do regular jacking if you'd like up top. We've got 1 minute of it. Again, just allowing our cardiovascular system to get a little bit of a warm up. Ready, go. So we're crossing, which hand is on top of the other. I want you guys to be making sure we're landing with our knees bent, using the floor as a springboard. So using those knees as shock absorbers to jump nice and high. If we're not jumping, we're tapping just like this. And what this arm kind of movement does is help us to lengthen our lever, right? And just challenge our heart rate, challenge our breathing. Just gives us pretty much something more to do. If you'd like, if you don't like that, we can jump and get those hands overhead. That'll bring that heart rate up as well. Just breathing through this for 15 more seconds. Can we speed it up just a little bit? Get ready for the rest of our workout. Although we are over a third of the way done. So that's awesome. 2, 1, done. Great job, guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. Whew. Hopefully your heart rate's still a little bit elevated. You're feeling perfectly warm. We're gonna get right into the next exercises. Grab water if you need it. Try to keep moving though, whether that means pacing, doing some toe taps, something like that. Try to keep those that warmth alive in your body as I explain. All right, so I've done this move once before for our triceps. So hopefully if you guys saw it before, you'll remember it, but we're gonna be doing some tricep elbow extensions. So where I want us to start is essentially in a tabletop position. So our wrists are directly underneath our shoulder heads and our knees are directly underneath our hips. And then we're going to walk our hands out maybe about 6 inches in front of us, all right? Just so the weight is majority in our hips or in the back of our body. And from here, what we're gonna do is lower our elbows down to the mat, just like this, and then we're gonna lift them right back up. So it's very similar to kind of a push-up motion, sort of, but we're working our triceps here, and then coming right back up, all right? So that was our tricep elbow extension, and as you guys do that, you'll feel how that's supposed to feel. Then for our lower body, we're gonna come onto our side and do some clamshells. So what this essentially means is you can have either your arm laying down like this or propping up your head, and then your hand is gonna be directly in front of your abdomen, pressing into the floor for extra stability. We're going to stack our legs on top with our knees at a 90-degree angle. And all we're going to do is open that top knee and close it. So we're pretending that our legs are making a nice big clam. We're opening it up, allowing the inside to be shown, and then closing back down. Really important that that big meaty part of the glute is on the mat as we're doing that. And then for our core move, we're going to come again onto our backs. We get to be on the mat for a lot for this circuit. We are going to place our hands underneath our butt, and we're going to be doing some flutter kicks. All right, so essentially what a flutter kick is we straighten those legs out, and we kick at about a 45-degree angle. We can kick up higher if we're feeling like that's too much. We can kick lower if we need more. We can also kind of play around with it, maybe kicking up and down if we'd like. That's also an option. So those are our 3 moves. So meet me in tabletop to get nice and ready. And then again, walking those hands out, maybe just about 6 inches in front of us so we have a little bit of room for those elbows to come down to the mat. All right, guys, in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, guys, so hopefully you're feeling this one. We'll begin to feel it, but we're essentially using our body weight, kind of similar to a tricep push-up, but using our body weight as the weight that our triceps are having to work against. And again, this is sort of the base movement. If you're not quite feeling it, we can also bring those knees out to come into a sort of a knee push-up position. Bringing those, we might need to bring those hands out a little bit more again so that we have room for those elbows to drop. And then bringing them up. This is just going to challenge us a little bit more. We make sure that those butts are out of the air. This is quite tough, guys, but if you can do it, then we can also come on to our toes. I don't even think I can do it. I don't know that I'm going to try it. But the knees are a perfectly valid option if you'd like to try. And those elbows just stay nice and tight to the body as we press up and in. All right, guys, good job. So let's come onto one of our sides. For these clamshells, we're going to do a minute on one side, a minute on the other, and then half and half for that last round. So again, big meaty part of the butt on the ground, and begin. So base move is once again to have that hand pressed in front of us, in front of that abdomen. If we don't want that, we can have it on our hip if we're feeling like we've got enough stability. But again, bracing to that core is really important here. Opening up, squeezing that gluteus medius, which is kind of this horizontal muscle that runs across the side of the butt. So a little bit different muscle than we were working with those hamstring curls, because that we were working on gluteus maximus. Now we're working on gluteus medius a little bit more, so the side glute, which is just as important. Helps us with our stability as we're standing, all that good stuff. So guys, keep this up. Feeling a little bit of a shake at the top. That is perfect. That's exactly what we want to be feeling. And again, we can have our hand resting on the mat, on the ground, if this is more comfortable for you. For 3, 2, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Awesome. All right, guys, and come onto your backs for these flutter kicks. Again, if you've never done flutter kicks before, they're pretty brutal. So my suggestion to you is to try one option, and then just if it's feeling too much, too little, experiment with some of the other options. If we want even more, we can also lift our head up off the mat. All great options. And if we need, we can also have a little bit more of a bend in those knees. That's a great way to, again, shorten the lever length, make it a little bit easier on us. We can also raise those feet up. And again, another great option that I would also recommend you guys try is bringing those legs up and bringing them down. So that we're kicking as we kind of raise them up and down. Maybe lifting that head up or just staying in one position. I used to be a swimmer, so this is a remnant of that. We used to do this quite a bit. It was quite tough, still quite tough. So trust me, if you guys are really feeling this, I am with you. 2, 1, great job. 20 seconds rest, grab that water if you need it. And again, hopefully on that move you guys tried your options. You know sort of what worked for you, maybe what didn't. And we can try some other things next time or stick with what you liked. So again, let's meet me in tabletop. Or if you were on your knees last time, in that knee position, you can be there. The tabletop is pretty much where I like to stay for this move. It is quite difficult. So let's begin. So this is another move though, that as we get better at it, right, it's very easy to see that progression because we start to feel like, you know what, this tabletop is maybe not exactly what, doing what I would like it to, so I can scooch my knees out just a touch more. That's going to put a little bit more of the burden into my arms rather than my hips, rather than my lower body, and allow my triceps to take a little bit more of the weight. And again, those elbows just go straight back behind us. Nice and tight to the body. Unlike a push-up, they're not out like this, right? They are directly in line with those shoulders, just a little bit in front of those shoulder heads. So a little bit of a modified tabletop. Last one, and back up. Awesome. All right, guys, so for those clamshells, we're gonna flip to the other side. You do not have to face me, but again, meaty part of the butt of the glute is on the mat, and we just open up using that arm for stability, 90-degree angle with those legs. And I didn't mention this before, make sure that those knees are pointing forward. So rather than our knees pointing downwards like this, want our knees pointing forward so we can really feel that gluteus medius working. We're squeezing with each and every rep. And I urge you that wherever you had that hand, if you're using it for stability last time, go ahead and do the same thing. I kind of had it, I think, on my hip for most of the reps, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Want to make sure we're nice and even in this class. Make sure our muscles, our sides, remain as even as possible, so long as you don't have an injury, of course. For 3, 2, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Last one. Awesome. All right, guys, and those flutter kicks, back at them. So again, pick the option that works best for you. I do recommend, though, if you're going to start with a more difficult option and then go towards the easier ones. You're going to be a lot less fatigued at the beginning of the minute than you are at the end of the minute. And again, that sort of base move is right at 45 degrees. Maybe with that head up, maybe with that head down. My ponytail is just right on the back of my head, so it's sort of uncomfortable with my head down. But so another thing, as we're doing this, let's make sure we know exactly where that lower back is. It's really easy to let that lower back press up off the mat, but we want to make sure it's imprinted on the mat as much as possible. That's going to really brace those lower abdominal muscles, brace those upper abdominal muscles, and make sure that we are nice and steady in this move. Three, 2, 1. Beautiful, guys. All right, 20 more seconds for our last round. Again, the beauty of this class, if you really hate one or all of the moves in any of the circuits, we only have to do them 3 times total. So let's really make it through. Think about how you can challenge yourself for this last round. All right, so back to tabletop or back to your knee position. And right back into those tricep extensions, ready to begin. Again, maybe playing around with the placement of those hands, the placement of those knees. Just trying not to shunt the weight backwards quite like this. We want to keep as much of the weight over those triceps as possible. So that all that's really moving in this position is our elbows bending and our elbows dropping to the mat. But otherwise, our weight distribution remains the same. Almost there, guys. Again, the last time through this, maybe we try to press our knees out just a little bit farther, giving a little bit more of engagement in those triceps, a little bit more burn in those triceps. I know I'm feeling it. Ouch. For 5 more seconds, guys. Let's do this. You're doing awesome. 2, 1. One more rep. Awesome job, guys. All right, for these clamshells, we're going to do half on one side, half on the other. Quick transition. So just get ready for that. And I will let you know when to switch. 3, let's squeeze that glute muscle at the top of each and every rep. Squeeze a little bit harder, squeeze it a little bit longer. You'd be surprised how much that little squeeze can really make a difference. All right, guys, 3, 2, 1, let's swap. Get into position, make sure that that lower glute is on the mat, big meaty part of the glute is on the mat. And we're squeezing up at the top, holding, maybe for a little second, second and a half, just a beat basically. Breathing through this one. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last rep, guys. Amazing job. All right, last time through these flutter kicks. I know they are difficult. That's exactly why I planned them for you guys. So let's pick that difficult progression, or pick that sweet spot for you, maybe a little bit past it, and let's make it happen. We've only got 1 more minute of these. One more thing that you can really focus on too is maybe speeding up those legs if you don't want to drop it down or pick it up too much. But they can also be nice and slow, nice and big. Lots of ways you can modify this move. And again, maybe bringing it up, bringing it down. Just adding some movement here, adding a little bit of a leg lift as well. We're halfway. If you need a little breather, you can hug those knees in briefly, and then bring it right back in. Bracing that core, bracing those lower abdominal muscles. For 15 seconds, guys, all the way to 0. Let's do it. Breathing, pressing that lower body, that lower core into the mat. 2, 1. Woo! That one really got me sweating. All right, quick stretch. And we are going to our core cardio move, excuse me. So we're doing triple step lateral runs. All right, so that looks like this. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. It's a little bit of a hold in that balance as we go to the side. And we're just running to the side. Just find a little bit of room. Ready, go. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. So the little bit of a trade-off here, guys, with speed and with distance. If you can get both of them, that's great. And as you can see, I'm kind of crossing over to make sure I can get a little bit longer of a run. Crossing over. We don't have to do that. We can also do a little bit more of a shuffle. I just prefer the run. And again, if we're not jumping, we can slow it down. A little bit of agility work. As you guys know, I often take some of my moves from Les Mills classes. So this is a body attack move. All the way through 0, guys. Less than 10 seconds. Almost there. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Last one. Hold. Whew. Let that heart rate come down. Grab some water. Awesome, awesome job. We are to our last section of class. So impressive. You guys are rocking it. Thank you for coming today. Okay. I gotta catch my breath too. So for our last section, we're gonna be doing our shoulders, our quads, and then also working our transverse abdominis muscles a little bit more. Alrighty. So for our shoulders, if you have access to 2 weights, you can grab them. I only have one right now because we used our other one to make soup. So that's okay. So I'm not going to be using my weights, but you know what? I'm in the same boat as you guys. So we're going to start with our feet a little bit wider than our hips. And what we're going to do is bend over a 45-degree angle, sending that butt back and bending in those knees a little bit. Then we're going to be doing some YTWs, okay? So essentially we're going to take our shoulder muscles. We're going to go up to make a Y, come back down, out to make a T. See how my shoulders kind of make a T position. And then I'm going to bend my elbows up like this. So bringing my elbows backwards, I lift up, back down, and then release. So again, a Y, T, W. The W move is a little bit more involved. And you guys will get it. I'll explain more as we get there. Then for our lower body, as promised, we're going to be doing those wall sits. So I'm going to find my little small piece of wall right here. And all we're going to do is essentially sit straight up on that wall and just let those knees come into a 90-degree angle, just like this. And we're going to hold for a minute. If you don't want to do that, regular squats, and I'll get more into that as we do it. And then for our core move, we're going to be in a plank position, doing plank toe taps. So we're going to be starting in the next big plank. This can be on your hands or on your forearms. What we're going to do is take our left hand, tap our right foot, hold, and then switch. Hold. It's really important that we allow that hold to really set in, and I'll get into that as we go through it. But let's start with those YTWs. Again, if you'd like to grab some weight, please feel free, but only if you have 2 weights, obviously. All right, guys. Ready, set, go. We had to sacrifice my weight for the soup. It was good soup. All right, so a Y, back down, T, back down, and then again, those elbows pop backwards, and then we rotate, rotate, back down. So again, from the side, that Y, T, elbows come back and up, rotate, rotate, back down. So we kind of start and end in this position where our arms are down by our sides, just like that. What we're really working here is a little bit more of the back of the shoulders. So that's kind of, I would say, the name of today. It's working into a little bit different components of the muscles than we usually do, right? We worked into a little bit of the outer portion of the bicep head rather than the belly of the bicep. We worked, again, here. We worked those hamstrings and those glutes a little bit more. We also worked the glute medius. Last one. Awesome. All right, coming into those wall sits. Again, this is going to be a little bit of a toughie. I know you guys are up for it. So, wall sits. Our feet are about our hip distance apart. Our knees are about parallel, make about a 90-degree angle. Thighs are about parallel to the ground. They don't have to be though. We need a little bit of a release. We can lift our butts up on the wall. We just want to press that lower back into the wall, feeling that core embrace. If we need a little extra, we can have our hands out in front of us. And really, we're just going to shake here together, guys. This is actually another thing that I used to do all the time as a swimmer. I used to wall sit up against a fence. My friend once wall sat for 10 minutes. So this minute should be no biggie for any of us, right? Just kidding. All right, guys. Again, bracing that core, just feeling that shake. If we need a little release, we can lift up a bit, using the wall to brace us for 10 seconds. Maybe looking down, admiring how awesome your quads look right now. 2, 1. Awesome. All right, and for our core move, those plank toe taps. I like to have my feet off of my mat just because otherwise I feel like my mat shifts a bit, but I'm allowing myself to come into that full plank position, full expression of the plank after each and every single toe tap. We're also bracing that core through those toe taps. So what we're doing here is essentially challenging our transverse abdominis, which is that big muscle that's kind of behind the muscles that you can see in your abdominals, that really is in charge of supporting all of our movement, supporting our back, and just allowing us to kind of walk straight, stay steady. So super important that we work that, brace into that core, brace, brace, brace. Also a little bit of those rotational muscles with those obliques as we twist just a touch. Here. So no mountains, no valleys. When we're in that full plank position, knees down, and let's come on up. Maybe shake it out a little bit, grab some water if you need it. We're going back to our shoulder exercise. All right, guys. Set the stance. Get into that 45-degree position with that butt nice and back. Become Y, T, elbows pulled back. We rotate up, we rotate back into position, and then release. Remembering to breathe here, still bracing that core. Really easy, once again, to forget to breathe, and also to forget to brace that core. So let's make sure we make a point to do it. All right, guys. And we're also here, as we're working the back of those shoulders, We are also working a little bit into that back. So let's really try to squeeze those shoulder blades together. As we do this, we're feeling a little bit of a pinch between those shoulder blades, almost like if I were going to put a pencil or maybe a $100 bill, which I'm sure we would all love, it would not fall between those shoulder blades. That's kind of what I want you to imagine. Last one. Awesome. Whew. Feeling a little bit more of a shake. Maybe we stretch it out a bit. All right, we're coming back to those wall sits. Get into position and begin. Maybe with this one, as our legs are fatiguing a bit more, we can't come quite as far down, but that's okay. If you try and start there and then can't make it all the way through that minute, that is totally fine. All that's really important today, you guys, is that y'all give it your all. And I'm sure, I was gonna say I can see that you are, but I cannot, so. I'm sure that you guys are all giving your all, and I'm really appreciative of that. Your bodies are gonna be appreciative of it tomorrow. That's our halfway mark. If we want to take it up, we can have those hands out. Maybe those hands up in front of us, ahead, on top of our heads. Again, I used to be a swimmer. They used to make a streamline like that. So that was my go-to position, but y'all don't have to do that. All right, guys, 10 seconds. I want you to feel that shake. Enjoy that shake. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Come on up. Push yourselves out. Shake it out a little bit. Get a little bit of movement into that quad muscle. And we're coming into those plank toe taps. All right, guys, set yourself up in a nice long plank. And then let's tap. And again, another great option is to come to those forearms. You will not be able to get quite as far in this option, just because you don't have quite as long of a distance to travel with those hands on the ground. However, for some people with wrist issues, or just me who prefers this oftentimes, you may prefer this, so go ahead and try it out. And again, if you need a little breather, you can come to those knees at any point, and then hop right back into it. And we're holding, coming into that nice, firm plank foundation. Again, our shoulders are directly over our hands. Our butt is not dipped like this. It's not up in the air like this. It is nice and flat. Our gaze is about a foot in front of us, nice and neutral. Nice neutral neck always. 2, 1, last rep. And hold. Knees come down. We need a little child's pose briefly before that last shoulder work. We can take it. All right, guys. Again, this is our last round. Let's really get after it. Really challenge ourselves. So YTWs, set the stance for me. And begin. Y, T, W. I should have come up with some fun acronym. Should help you guys remember, but hold on, let me think. I don't know. Maybe next time. If y'all come to my next class, that'll be the first thing I say. All right, guys. So kind of like I've been saying with that neutral neck, the same applies here. We're bracing that core. We're also making sure that our gaze is right in line with that spinal alignment, right? We're not looking overly down. We're not looking overly up to the ceiling. All we're really doing is allowing our neck to lie as it naturally would, so we're not overly straining it. Woo! I'm feeling it in my shoulders, feeling that little burn. Hopefully you guys are too. Last rep, finish this one. Beautiful. All right, wall sits. Guys, I really challenge you to try to pick a position, stay in it for an entire minute. Let's do it all together. Across the country. We can do this. I don't know if you guys know this. I live in Texas, so we are technically across the country if y'all are in Virginia. Maybe some of you guys are in other places as well. But that's why it's so exciting to get to connect with y'all. Miss my Virginia people. And again, we can have our hands out like this if we'd like. Just breathing through this, maybe bracing that core, pressing that lower back into the wall. This is a great time to really feel how that feels as we crunch through that abdominal, those lower abdominals. Sometimes on the mat, it's hard to feel, but against this wall, it's very easy to visualize. Breathing through this. Trust me, guys, I'm feeling it too, feeling that shake. Woo. 10 more seconds, we're almost there. Don't pull out now. You guys have got this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on up. Oh, ouch. Go ahead, pull out those quads quickly, and then meet me on the mat for our last plank. All right, guys, last move of class before our last cardio peak. So let's do it. Maybe for this one, as we're challenging ourselves, we hold that plank for just a beat longer. So rather than 1 beat, maybe it's 2 beats, maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, however long you need to really feel powerful, stable in that plank position. That's really my goal, especially with these transverse abdominis moves, to help you guys feel stable and powerful. Breathing all the time. We're almost there. Three, 2, 1. Hold, and knees come down. Great job, guys. All right, last cardio move. And then we go for our cool down. We're doing some box runs. So pretend like you've got a big box on the ground. We're going to go out, out, in, out, in. All right, about a faster pace. Like this, a little bit of agility. 2, 1, let's get after it. So pick a leg. If this one's feeling a little bit wonky, maybe you try starting with the other leg. Maybe we switch halfway through. Try to be nice and even. And the faster we can go, obviously the better. Imagining that box on the ground. If we're just tapping, this is where we can be. We're still getting lots of agility, lots of straining out of this, but without that bouncing. Breathing through this, guys. You need a little breather. Shake it out. We're over halfway done, so let's get through it together. Woo, maybe those calves are starting to feel it. Mine are. Where are we at? 3, 2, all the way through 0. And finish. Great, great job, guys. So impressed by all of you. That was no easy feat. So my 2 cooldown songs that I usually program are at the bottom of the playlist. I don't think they have started yet. So if they haven't, go ahead, start those if you'd like. And let's go ahead and meet me in a nice child's pose. So starting in our tabletop position that we found ourselves in quite a bit through class today. And what we're gonna do is let those hips come over our heels. Then those arms stretch out long, and our head comes to the mat. This is our child's pose if you've never been there before. You can either have your knees directly underneath you, underneath your shoulders, or I like to tip my knees out and allow my toes to touch each other. Feel a little bit more of a stretch through my hips. All right, guys. And we're gonna get to the back of that shoulder. So let's take either one of our hands, it really doesn't matter, but we're going to keep the other one on the mat and thread the other hand underneath and allow that shoulder to rest on the mat. Nice shoulder stretch, which should feel really good after those YTWs that we just did. And again, just letting that shoulder pop on the mat, or sorry, that head rest on the mat. And when you're ready, go ahead and unthread it, bring it back up, sink once again into that child's pose. And then go ahead and take that opposite arm, thread it directly underneath that other arm. And I'm gonna make sure that head is facing and looking at the hand that's threaded underneath. I just can't do that because I want you guys to be able to hear me. Take a nice slow breath, letting your heart rate come down. Thanking your body for all the awesome, awesome work it did today. All right, guys, and when you're ready, go ahead and unthread that needle, bring that hand to meet the other one, And sink one last time into that nice child's pose. Maybe getting and allowing your hips to open a little bit more by bringing those knees a little bit wider. All right, guys, let's come back into that tabletop position that we started in. Knees under hips, hands under our shoulders. We are going to go ahead and come into a hip flexor stretch. So bringing one of your legs in front of you, 90-90, bringing that chest to lift up. I'm going to switch so you guys can actually see better, but we'll switch in a second. So what we're going to do is like we practiced with in that very first movement, we're going to tip our pelvis underneath us and then push forward. So I see a lot of people like to do this stretch like this. I prefer just to press into, just to press a little bit into this so that we feel that hip flexor stretch rather than straining that knee, right? We want to keep our nice lunge form, same principles as our lunge and squat form. So just like this. And if we'd like, we can take the same arm as the one that's backwards and lift it overhead for a nice tricep stretch. So elbow goes into the air, almost like we're giving ourselves a nice pat on the back. We try not to pull or tug on our elbow joint. All right, guys, and just like we saw in the warm-up, go ahead and put those hands around our foot. We're gonna pop the toe of our forward foot up off the mat and lean it back into a nice hamstring stretch, allowing this front one to straighten, but not completely. Nice flat back. All right, guys. And when you're ready, go ahead, come back into that tabletop position. We're gonna do the same exact thing on the opposite side. So bring the other foot into that hip flexor stretch. Chest comes up, bracing that core. We tuck our pelvis under and push forward lightly till we feel a nice tug in that hip flexor. And we bring that same arm over top, like we're patting ourselves on the back for a nice tricep stretch. All right, and let's go ahead and straddle those hands around our foot, pop that toe off as we bring those hips over our back heel and straighten out that front leg. Try and keep that back as flat as possible, bringing our chest down to our knee rather than our nose. All right, guys, and let's come into that tabletop position once again. We've got one more stretch kind of on the ground, so let's, as gracefully as possible, come into a seated position, however you'd like to get there. What we're gonna do is cross one of our legs, it doesn't matter which one, because we're gonna do both, over our top knee, all right? And from here, what we're going to do is essentially just scooch that toe, scooch that bottom foot, that line of foot that's on the mat, as close to our body as possible until we feel a nice stretch through that gluteus maximus and gluteus medius muscles, all right? Make sure that chest stays nice and tall. We can also scooch our hands in a little bit more if we need even more of a stretch. We're trying to push that chest while keeping our shoulders back and down towards our towards our shin. All right, let's uncross and swap. And again, guys, start sort of in a neutral position and then scooch in until you find that stretch, right? It's not guaranteed that both of your glutes will need the same amount of stretching. One of them might be quite a bit tighter than the other, and that's totally fine. Just want to make sure that we allow space for both of that, to happen, but that both of them get the stretching that they need, right? All right, guys, put that other foot on the mat and meet me in a standing position. I'm going to go ahead and rock forward and roll it on up nice and slowly. We've got 3 more stretches to do, and then we're out of here. We're going to do a quad stretch, so go ahead and bring that palm out. The opposite palm will reach behind and grab the shoelaces of that foot. Knees stay together. This hand is really just for balance. I just always put it out there. Our hips come forward, and if we want, we can reach that other hand behind and tug with both hands for a little extra stretch. All right, guys, release. Now let's do the opposite one. So that opposite hand reaches behind and grabs onto that shoelace, pressing forward with those hips. And if we reach behind, let's do the same on this side. Awesome. All right, guys, last 2 stretches. Let's go ahead and reach in front of us, stretch out those shoulder blades. We're gonna hug a tree in front of us, just like this. Rounding through the back, you guys can see my back. Just pulling those shoulder blades apart. And in the middle, let's stop here. Let's do a thumbs up to stretch out those biceps. And thumbs down quickly. And then last stretch, let's hug behind us. Opening up to that chest. Hug a tree behind us, just like this. Maybe raising your gaze to the ceiling so we can really open up that chest. All right, guys, and give yourselves a huge round of applause. Y'all rocked it today. Thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this class. But yeah, I really enjoyed you guys coming, and hopefully you guys can come again.